So, for today, the first thing that I want to do is talk about what is an emotional trigger. We're all familiar with physical allergies to certain foods or pollen, but less familiar with our emotional allergies. A trigger can be referred to as an emotional allergy. It's an intense reaction to something in the present that reminds us, whether consciously or unconsciously, of an event from our history. And we each come into this world with a unique set of circumstances: our home environment, our childhood wounds, our life experiences, and all of those contribute to the way that we handle stress and disappointment. And without realizing it, our unresolved pain and our unmet needs and desires, all the way back from childhood, often contribute to our responses to others. In fact, those things often control our lives in much more ways than we're even aware. Each of us have undesirable habits, unhealthy patterns, and unconscious triggered reactions that have simply become a way of life for us. Our behaviors were often modeled by our parents or our siblings, and we never really thought twice about the way that we respond to others. It's just how we've always done it. Some of our reactions and habits were actually formed as protectors during childhood. In an effort to protect ourselves from experiencing pain, our brains go into a fight or flight response at the first sign of danger. And that may have worked well to protect us when we were children, but the responses that we had as children don't often serve us well in our relationships as adults. So when we respond in a way that doesn't make rational sense, it's usually because we're being triggered. We're essentially having an allergic reaction to an event. We've likely all seen an adult respond in a way that reminded us of a child. And chances are they were triggered, and their response to the trigger reverted them to their childlike state. In fact, when we experience an emotional wound as a child, we're often arrested in our emotional development to the age when that painful event actually occurred. Emotional triggers are powerful emotional responses that can manifest in various different ways, such as sudden anger, sadness, fear, or feelings of inadequacy. And it's essential to become aware of these triggers and recognize how they impact our daily lives and our relationships. So by paying attention to recurring emotional responses in different situations, you can gain insight into the specific events or circumstances that trigger intense emotions inside of you. Maybe that's criticism or rejection, abandonment, loss, betrayal, or invalidation. Those are all common triggers that you may have experienced. So today, I want to teach you how to identify your personal triggers. And if you need to pause this video, I want to invite you to go somewhere where there aren't any distractions, somewhere where you can be comfortable and relaxed. So first, take a moment and recall something that happened recently that made you feel bad or uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be something huge, but it should be something that caused a response in you that you felt on a visceral level. You could feel it in your body. Maybe you felt your blood pressure rising or your heart beating faster. Maybe tears welled up in your eyes, or you screamed obscenities. Whatever the reaction was, it likely made you uncomfortable. So some examples could be someone made a comment that upset you, or your boss got mad at you for something. Someone cut you off in traffic or in a line in a store. It could be something more serious, but those are even just some minor examples. The key is, what was happening and why were you so upset? Next, identify the feelings that you experienced: sudden anger, sadness, fear, hopelessness, helplessness, loneliness, feelings of inadequacy. And now take note of your triggered response. When you're triggered, your body, mind, and emotions respond in specific ways. Your heart rate may increase. You may feel a tightening in your chest, or your face may feel hot. You might begin to physically shake or pace or obsessively clean. This is one of mine, as strange as it sounds. In hindsight, I think that I was subconsciously trying to control my environment when my situation felt out of control. But when we're in the midst of the trigger, we aren't thinking logically. So it's important for you to recognize how you respond in your body when you're triggered, so that you can more easily identify it in the future. There's a good chance that you won't recognize it until after the fact, in the following hours or days, when you notice that your thoughts are consumed by the incident. And it's in the hours and days after the event that it's best to actually do this exercise. Now, the final step is getting to the root and figuring out where the emotion is coming from. As I mentioned before, our childhood experiences play a significant role in shaping our triggering emotional responses in adulthood. And the first couple decades of our experiences can be very formative. If we didn't have help managing the difficult things that we thought and felt during this time, they can affect how we view others and ourselves later in life. So for this exercise, consider your first 2 decades of life. When was the first time that you recall having that feeling, or one similar to it? And once you recall a time in your childhood where you felt that same way, you may be surprised by what comes up in you. There's been times I just cried when I realized that my inner child was still needing to be comforted from the pain she experienced so many years ago. It's in these moments that you can show compassion for the younger version of yourself who was trying desperately to get her needs met in the best way that she knew how.